This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is now 6 p.m. on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. And I call this regular meeting of council to order here at the East Beaches Social Scene in Victoria Beach. I respectfully acknowledge we're meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Assiniboine, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous and Métis communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So introductions around the table.
Steve Axelby.
Lon Turner.
And Penny McMorris, Mayor, and on the screen, Councillor Randall.
Graham Randall here, thank you.
Ian Chadsey.
Ian Chadsey, hello.
And Councillor Kumka.
Greetings from Fort McMurray.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion to adopt the agenda. Be it resolved, the agenda be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Second, Ian, thank you. Any additions, gentlemen?
Just maybe.
I had one.
Okay, sorry, Ian, go ahead.
I just wanted to add a discussion on the zoning bylaw. I just wanted to have just a quick discussion on that to see if we could get the just internally focus on the editing process. In other words, get a draft and get us reading it over the next month or two, just to sort of move that process along.
All right, so we could put that under 8D.
Right.
Steve?
I just thought about it. I can just mention it during correspondence. That's okay.
All right. All right, hearing nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. All right, the minutes of the January 9th council meeting have been circulated to members of council. Be it resolved, the minutes of the January 9th, 2024 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Graham, thank you. Second, Irwin, thank you. Any comments, concerns?
They look fine to me.
All right.
Agreed.
All right, hearing nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we are moving on to our delegations, and a reminder to the delegations that we would appreciate you keeping to your 10 minutes if possible. And Stuart, I believe you want to go first, if that's all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please turn on the mic. I know you have a loud voice, but it just allows everyone to hear.
Okay, so I hope you can hear me or I'm recorded.
You are recorded, but you might want to hold the.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for hearing me. Actually, I'd like to begin by looking at a number of different aspects of revetments and shoreline. So just very briefly to begin, looking at the proposal for the Shoreline Management Committee. The membership is to be 3 lakefront owners and 2 non-lakefront owners as voting members. Correct?
That could be.
That is the case.
All right.
So basically, looking at percentages of population, lakefront owners probably amount to about 15% of the RM's ratepayers. Lakefront probably about 85. Regardless, that's not really important. What is important is that everyone in the community has an equal stake in the future of this community. There's no reason to privilege a small minority of lakefront owners in this way. We are all equal here, and we should all have an equal say on the land that concerns all of us. I'll come back to that later. Second thing is to look at the revetment that was done on King Edward, and perhaps to bring some points to your attention that you may not have noticed. If I go off to build a cottage at Victoria Beach, I provide a design to the building inspector. He is the one who will tell me I can build this or not. I presented with my design. My design has 1x4 rafters. They're spaced 6 feet apart. What is the reaction of the building inspector? he looks at the calendar and sees is it April the 1st, because nobody builds raptors 1x4, 6 feet apart. It would not be approved. Okay, so basically, for the revetment that has been built at King Edward and Alex, one of the proponents actually engaged with 7 engineers to try to get one of them to approve the structure. 7 engineers, 2 of whom were geotech engineers, found that the project was not built to purpose or viable. They all refused. Council knew this, and yet 4 members of council still voted for something that had been rejected by 7 engineers. Secondly, of course, nobody really wanted the proposal to pass a review by a qualified engineer because it would not have passed. So I find for council to vote for something that has been rejected by 7 specialists who know something about the field, I think is unacceptable. The structure itself and its erosion. Basically, the reason why people really don't want this structure built is because let's turn this off. My apologies. YouTube does weird things. Okay, so going back, erosion. Basically, erosion will lead to the destruction of the beach. I think this is well established. In the September the 19th meeting, Penny read out a letter from Pete Zuzek. Okay, Zuzek? I'm not too good with names. She read out, unfortunately, only the last 3 paragraphs of a 6-paragraph letter. The 1 paragraph that was missing is the 3rd paragraph, which was germane to the discussion about King Edward and Alex. It reads as follows, quote, if you armor an eroding bluff shoreline, the beaches have a very high probability of disappearing under most lake level conditions. This is a very important statement. It was not read out, and it was, however, circulated to the members of the council on September the 1st with the following warning: for our eyes and ears only. In other words, this information was suppressed. However, on September the 10th, one of the proponents contacted council and said the following: what happens if we armor the beach? The beach is fine. So who is right? One of the proponents of this proposal, who basically is not a qualified individual to make these judgments, Mr. Zuzak. Any questions so far? Okay, secondly, timeline. Basically, it's very clear that this proposal was brought forward to council at a fairly early date, okay, after the Laura Jones presentation in March. On February 23rd, Penny said that the council supports the proposal. On September the 12th, she agrees that basically the delegates to the meetings who have opposed this are saying nothing new. On November the 2nd, one of the proponents sees this as an opportunity for a taxpayer. On August the 22nd, Councillor Krumka refers to the group wanting this proposal as selflessly supporting and trying to help the shoreline stabilization of the West Beaches. It would seem that there's a certain amount of bias involved here. On September the 6th, Councillor Krumka said, I challenged a few of the presenters of the meeting on September the 5th. As it stands now, they are the unfriendlies. So basically, when you go to a council meeting, you expect to be treated with respect, not with this level of bias. On September the 5th, Board Pattern asked when council had gotten the proposal. Penny, you said that it was only presented at the August 22nd meeting. However, this proposal came before council on August the 8th. It was sent to you and circulated among the members of council. So for the 6 presenters on September the 5th, Andrew Smith, Gord Patten, Linda Kleinauer, Andrew Stelmack, Mike Mason, and one other, you're basically treating them as unfriendlies. I think this is not the way the council should have proceeded. So the conclusion is that there are all kinds of problems with this proposal. Now, statements have been made about property lines and who owns the beach. Your property line is where your stakes are. If you have two lines, this is a line, this connects them. If you are on the lakefront and if there is erosion at the top, it may enter into your property. However, your stakes go down to the ground. You own the land down there. Right? Okay. In other words, if, however, there is erosion at the top, the bank goes back 3 or 4 feet, and actually stakes belonging to the proponents were on the beach, they would actually own that land behind the stakes. It would be about 2 feet wide. The rest of the beach in front of those stakes would obviously still be public and would be enjoyed by our population. So, in other words, this is really unacceptable to state that you own the beach. We have also gifted the proponents of this structure 900 roughly square feet of land each in order for their use. This land then is no longer used by the rest of the community. So, a couple of questions. Have you been threatened by a lawsuit by any of the proponents and brought up the idea of a lawsuit against council if you did not proceed with this proposal?
Not that I know
Not that we are aware of.
Well, it's, I would suggest you look at your emails for September the 28th. Okay? Also, in terms of the tender, the $27,500 for the gap that would exist at the Alexander Stairs. Tenders obviously do not necessarily go to the lowest bidder. In other words, there are all other kinds of factors involved. However, they should be taken seriously. On October 25th, Grant Randall stated that this tender was being done for appearances only, quote. In other words, it would appear, not necessarily, but it does appear that you know in advance who is going to get the tender. Okay, so that is a problem. So these are things that I have brought up, and I would like sort of to discuss them further. Now, in terms of the Shoreline Management Committee, it's very clear that some people are part of a herd mentality. You have a Lakeshore Association group. You also have things like the BBCOA. And you have to be very careful as to who you appoint to this committee. So I'll ask each councillor the following question. You should also have some knowledge. So people make statements about erosion. Would you make a statement about cancer unless you are an oncologist? You have to have some knowledge about what you're talking about. One would assume you do.
It would
Okay.
depend
And
on,
Penny, actually, you probably have the most knowledge of any council member here. Okay, I respect that fact, that you actually do know your material. But in terms of the, let's say, the knowledge of erosion, there are specialists who deal with this. So who are they? What is the scientific field that deals with erosion caused by water? Do any of you know?
geotech and geomorphology.
No, geotechs are engineers. The people who study erosion are scientists. It's a scientific field.
Geomorphologists.
You know, you would. You're the one. Coastal geomorphologist. Yeah, you know. Okay. I don't think the other councillors know. So you have to actually have some knowledge. As I said, I do respect your knowledge on this issue. I don't expect, I respect you necessarily your conclusions, but you do actually have a good amount of knowledge. Now, any questions that you have?
No, other than your 10 minutes is up, but I have one clarification. February 23rd, you referred to,
What date?
I think you said something about,
August the 23rd.
no,
The meeting. That's when the meeting was held.
the meeting was August 22nd.
Pardon?
The meeting was August 22nd.
22nd.
You,
Okay.
you referred to when we received the documents.
it said-
We received information about a week prior, but it was not made public until the
No, I agree. It
22nd.
wasn't made
Just
public.
like you reserved a space as a delegation a week ago, it wasn't made
But you
public
had, but you
until,
did have the information. That's what you were asked.
only until they come to council publicly is that information made public. If they haven't shown up, we wouldn't have had the information to release. would we?
Yeah, but you could have stated that you received it. You don't have to make it public on the 8th of August, but you could have said you received it on the 8th of August. You didn't, okay?
We
Secondly,
said it was presented to council on August 22nd. That's what we've said.
Yes, we've said it was presented publicly to council on the 22nd.
yeah,
That's what the words.
but you had the documentation on the 8th.
Yes,
And you came to conclusions about what you wanted to do without actually hearing from the opponents of this proposal. In other words, keeping an open mind is quite important. And since June, there was a meeting on the 28th of June with the proponents, and you have given them every possible support.
yes, but they still had to come forward and we still had to hear from the residents, which we did, and we still had to get approvals and regulations that we asked them to follow, which they did.
Okay? Any other questions?
No, I'm good. Council?
I'm just very confused about but the biggest one was that the 900 square feet.
Okay, 75 feet per thing, 12 feet. 75 by 12 feet, so what, 900? That's what 900 square feet for each of the proponents comes from.
Okay.
Okay, in other words, I live on 8th Avenue. If I want to build for my granddaughter a trampoline, put a fence out on 8th Avenue, expropriate municipal land, would I be allowed to do it? Of course not. I shouldn't be.
Okay.
But we are giving, okay, these individuals this land. And now they want a tax credit, tax rebate for building the structure, claiming that they are protecting
Oh.
municipal land. But Steve, you were actually the one person who I think came out of this really well. You wanted an engineering assessment, and that's to your credit. And you were attacked for that by your fellow councillor.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just the office hasn't received any requests for a tax.
Pardon?
The office hasn't received any requests for a tax credit that I know of. So.
You've received emails,
But there was no.
not formally. but
Well,
you've
I get
received
lots of emails that I don't act on. I mean,
No, I agree. You have to give it. I'm not saying I'm not saying you have given a tax rebate, but I'm saying individuals have asked for it. That's all I'm saying. I haven't said you've given one.
Sorry.
Hopefully you won't.
Thank you, Stuart. Nicholas, are you ready to go? There you are.
Laura,
I am.
can you please, take your camera off, please? You're not a delegation today, so. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, sorry about that, Nicholas. Please go ahead.
Okay. I am the only delegation scheduled to appear before council in response to the current proposal to build a rock structure on Connaught Beach following the recent similar constructions on King Edward and Alexandra. But that is not an indication of any change in the widespread opposition among our community to such structures and the loss of our beaches that they inevitably entail, a sentiment which was so eloquently conveyed by 12 delegations last September, as well as by many others who contacted council through other means. Rather, this lack of other delegations tonight is the unfortunate result of a loss of faith and trust in council to listen to this community after last fall's events. But council has another opportunity now to listen before it sacrifices another beach. I encourage council to re-watch the recorded meetings from September 5th and 19th and listen once more, really listen, to the delegations of Andrew Smith and Andrew Stelmach, of Gord, of Joanne, of Linda, of Blake, of Mike, of Kathy, of Jennifer, of Helen, of Sean, and of Jim. They represented the perspective of the majority of this community who want to protect all of our beautiful beaches that gave Victoria Beach its very name, so they can be enjoyed not just by all of us here today, but by those who come after us as well. They provided far more information, more suggestions, more help to you than I possibly can in just these 10 minutes. And so I will not repeat everything that they said about how these rock structures inevitably lead to the disappearance of beaches. That information has already been put before council by many people, many times, including by the engineer Penny herself asked in August, as my father just quoted in his delegation. But we are no longer just talking about eventual beach loss over several years. Now the proposed construction of Connaught will be 18 feet wide, half again as wide as the last one. Connaught is a narrow beach, narrower than King Edward and Alexandra, and 18 feet will occupy most of its width, perhaps even all of it in places if it is not a low water year. This will be the loss of Connaught Beach. Not as the sand is scoured away over several years, but immediately, when almost the entire beach is covered in rocks, with only a narrow strip of sand left, or even nothing at all, just rocks and water, depending on lake levels, maybe this very summer. Connaught, like all our beaches, is enjoyed by many members of our community and visitors to it. Swimmers, sunbathers, sightseers, young and old. It should not be sacrificed in this way. Further, I've raised twice before this council that there are fundamental unanswered questions about the rock structure that was built on King Edward and Alexandra. This proposed structure on Connaught raises the same questions. How much sand loss will it cause? Will it actually slow or stop erosion of the banks? Will it even be stable, or will it collapse over time as it is subjected to the elements? On King Edward and Alexandra, we will find out the answers to these questions the hard way in the coming years. But since council has already enrolled us all in this experiment on 2 of our beaches, should we not see how it plays out there before building any more of these structures? We have now the opportunity to do what should have been done with the sandbags a decade ago. Starting this very summer, council must measure both the sand levels and the erosion rates at King Edward and Alexandra and continue to do so through the coming years. Once we have seen the impact of the structure in King Edward and Alexandra, we will be in a position to make informed decisions about further rock structures, not before. There is no urgency here, only a false sense of it being generated by those who ignore the simple fact that erosion is a slow process. The rate of erosion of the cliffs is just a few inches per year. We know this from history. We know this from science. We know this from our own lived experience. We have time. In the meantime, perhaps some other mitigation measures can be considered on Connaught. But now is not the time for more rock structures. Now is not the time for it to be destroying Connaught Beach. Furthermore, the RM has already spent close to $100,000 on expenses related to the King Edward and Alexandra rock structures, all told, as well as having assumed responsibility for unknown and unlimited long-term maintenance costs for that structure, and also having committed to $25,000 per year for a sand replenishment fund, which may well prove insufficient for just King Edward and Alexandra. Is it prudent for the RM to incur additional expenses related to another rock structure as well? Will additional funds, on top of the $25,000 for King Edward and Alexandra, be set aside for sand replenishment on Connaught, bearing in mind that Connaught will most likely require hundreds of thousands of dollars of sand replenishment in the near future to recreate a usable beach there if the majority of it has been covered in rocks? I've gone well under 10 minutes, but I am actually done now. Thank you. There's no questions.
Sorry, thank you. I do have one question. Where do you get the $100,000 that the RM has spent already? Can you tell me how it works?
So I was adding there the cost of the engineer who I understand council paid for, the engineer who supervised or oversaw in some capacity. That I believe was paid for by council. I believe that they paid for the section by the stairs. I believe they paid for something to do with the ramp on King Edward. And also there were legal fees involved that I believe council also paid for. Perhaps $100,000 is high. Perhaps it was, let's say, $50,000 to $100,000. I don't actually have all of those figures available. Perhaps council wants to make them public, but I don't think they actually have all been made public.
According to our CAO, we've spent about $35,000 so far.
Survey.
Does that include everything that I just mentioned?
Let me point out, any payments are documented at each council meeting.
Okay, I can review them. So close to $50,000 then.
No, 35,
Under 40.
under 40. I'm just going with
All
what
right,
our
under
CAO.
40 this year, plus 25 next year, 25 the year after, 25 the year after, 25 the year after, 25 the year after, plus any ongoing maintenance costs for the structure in perpetuity.
Perhaps, yes,
Okay.
we don't know what those figures are going to be for sure, Nicholas. We don't have any way to quantify at this point in time.
I would have thought that that was my point. Yes, you do not have any way of quantifying the unlimited ongoing costs that you have incurred. Yes, agreed.
But we can put money aside, which is what council has agreed to do for beach management. And no, it does not just apply to King Edward, Alex.
In that case, it will be incredibly insufficient. It was already likely insufficient for King Edward and Alexandra. If it is to be given the figure of $500,000 that you cited from whoever contractor you got for replenishment of just King Edward and Alexandra, the $25,000 would not be sufficient even for that beach. If you're going to make it for every beach in the municipality that you build these structures on, which it is looking increasingly like it will be all of them, then that $25,000 is grossly insufficient.
Okay, thank you. Council have any questions for Nicholas?
Nicholas, what would you do to reduce erosion and increase bank stability?
A variety of suggestions have been made by various delegations in September. I believe that the suggestions for using vegetation had promise. I think that the sandbags were a compromise that seemed to work for a decade. Personally, my suggestion to council, which I made in September, I was one of those who recommended moving the property lines, a suggestion that for some reason was not considered. The explanation given at the October meeting why that was not considered was because it would require moving the property lines. But that was the suggestion. My specific suggestion was that the property lines would be moved back in exchange for compensation for the portion of the lots that would be reduced. You move those lot lines back 10 feet, you buy decades of time, and you compensate these cottage owners with what would actually be less money in the long term than this other plan seems like it will entail. And I think that's a win-win, because instead of these people paying money, they would get a bit of money. Instead of the rest of our community losing our beaches, we'd maintain our beaches. So I thought it was a promising suggestion, but it does not seem to have been considered. But regardless, the sandbags, if there's got to be something in the meantime, maybe those. I also think that the people
So in essence, you were saying council should expropriate a portion of the lakefront property from all of the property owners who hold beach property.
10 feet. I would agree. Not the entire lots, but approximately 10 feet.
Who would pay for that?
The calculations that I had for that was that would be a couple $100,000, but that's actually what you're going to end up paying over the years for the sand replenishment anyway. So, it's who's going to pay for that sand replenishment? Who's going to pay for these $35,000? Who's going to pay for the ongoing maintenance?
I suggest your number is very, very low.
For 10 feet of their property, that's as a portion of their property.
You're talking about the most valuable properties in all of Victoria Beach. Now, what about Albert Beach? What about Wanasing Beach? What about the Hamptons? Where do you stop?
Each of these other beaches, though, will incur expenses under an alternate plan. Each of these other beaches will incur expenses for sand replenishment under the alternatives. Each of these other beaches will incur maintenance costs under the other plans. Every beach that we're talking about involves expenses both ways. I think, based on what I can see, moving back the property lines 10 feet, which is less than 10% of these properties, that is an expense that the council could, that the municipality could pay, and that would be less than the ongoing cost of sand replenishment, of maintenance, and of these other incidental expenses that council is running up. But, if you don't accept that part, the sandbag thing, well, everybody seemed to like that.
Well, we saw what happened to the sandbags in high water. They just disintegrated and stopped doing their job.
So they have to be replaced every decade or so, perhaps. They seem to work for a decade. They didn't fall apart after a year. And the structure that's been constructed in Edward Alexandria, we have not seen how that survives a high water year. Frankly, having looked at it over the holidays, when I was actually in the municipality visiting my father, I have some doubts as to whether that structure itself would endure large storms. So, if it doesn't, you haven't saved anything. You'll have the cost of repairing it. And you haven't seen that yet, and you're prepared to build more.
I agree with your comment. Time will tell. Let's see what happens. At least this is a positive step forward. Is it a guaranteed solution? No one can guarantee it.
I disagree with the premise that it's a positive step forward. I think that having sacrificed our beaches for the property of a small number of people, potentially protecting them, that's actually, I think, dubious. I think that is not a step forward. I think that is a step backward. And I think that will be obvious in the years to come.
I guess we can agree to disagree.
All right. Any further questions, gentlemen?
Nope.
All right. Thank you. Hearing none. Thank you very much, Nicholas, for your presentation. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We will move on to committee reports. And I will start with Public Works. Public Works report to January 23rd. Weekly garbage pickup is every Monday. Roads are plowed and sanded as required. Windrows will be removed by request. Please give them 48 hours notice. Call ahead or email to be added to the list. They need at least that 48 hours notice, as we now have over 100 driveways on our list. It takes an entire day to clear them. To make it easier, Public Works must be able to see your address, as many are covered with snow, and at times they can only find an address close by and count back to the requested one. Civic address signs can be ordered throughout the year until the September long weekend. Signs are then ordered and installed in the fall. Public Works has started marking dead and dangerous trees on RM property throughout the beach. An arborist has been hired at a very reasonable daily rate. He will drop the trees while Public Works follows behind and does the cleanup. The community center rink is flooded and cleared as needed. Preventative maintenance is ongoing on all municipal equipment. The cold weather is very hard on our vehicles. E-service requests can be made from the RM of Victoria Beach webpage. Water samples from the well at the fire hall and the Albert Beach pump house are tested monthly throughout the winter. And bike racks and benches are currently being built to be placed out in the community in the summer. Any questions on Public Works? Okay, thank you. Moving on to finance. Ian?
Just looking at the operating budget for 2023, looks like the revenue year to date came in around 3.8 million. The budget was 3.46, so we're had extra about $330,000. The expenses were over by $145,000. The year to date was 3.6 and the budget was 3.46. So we ended up with a surplus. Some of the reasons why the expenses were over, three areas. The admin area had some legal costs, and website budget was over. Police and the CSOs, both areas were over on salaries. The other areas were pretty much under, which offset the parts that were over, and Public Works was in line with their budget. On the cash side, we came in better than 2022, and we're operating with a surplus at this point.
Okay, any questions, gentlemen, comments?
Where did the extra money come from?
On the revenue side, Lon, you want to help me out?
There was some taxes added it was pretty substantial. That came in after we did the budget and the public hearing. When the assessment makes changes, they send it out to us. We send out supplemental tax bills in August, September. So there was quite a bit of money added there. A lot of the fire calls this year, a majority of them were out of the municipality, so we billed for them. Then just other little things just added up. Rebates, quite a bit more than we thought we were going to get. Interest on our bank accounts is a little more than I budgeted for. Oh, there's another one. I can't remember.
It's all good.
We transferred other reserve funds too that weren't in the budget. We can transfer them out of the specific purpose funds to buy some machinery. So.
All right.
Oh, the golf course. That was the other one. The golf course had.
Yeah, the golf course. You're right.
Yeah, they had revenue surplus of 35 to 40,000. So all that contributed to the overall surplus for the RM, which you can carry forward to this year and use that, and not, instead of taxing people, you can carry over that surplus. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ian. I'll move on to protective services. Erwin, do you have the police report by chance?
Yes, I do. December was a quiet month, which is encouraging. There were no break-ins at all. We had 3 call-outs for assistance from the RCMP. There was, excuse me, they needed some help on transporting some issues with respect to a mental health condition. There was a vehicle which was stolen, and there was one break-in, but none of those events took place in Victoria Beach. Each month, the police keep track of their activities. There were 89 items reported. Now, by comparison, in July, which is our busiest month, there were 353 activities reported. So it's quiet. Again, my compliments to our police force. They are more visible than they have been in the past, and I think the effect on public safety and reduced break-ins. Again, I think in the year gone by, we had a total of 3 or 4 break-ins in total. So my compliments to the police force. They're doing a good job in reducing one of our major concerns. They also work very hard on traffic control.
All right, thank you. Comments, concerns, questions?
Council, I'm going to say that getting the additional police officer down here throughout the year has really changed a lot. So I mean that since we did that, the numbers of break-ins have plummeted.
All right. Okay, thank you, Erwin. Steve, did you get the fire report?
Yes.
Good, okay.
So there were a total of 5 calls attended by the Victoria Beach Fire Department in December. 4 of the calls were in the RM of Alexander. 2 of the calls were in the sorry, my eyes really bugging right now. 2 of the calls in the RM of Alexander were fire related. 1 call was for a structure fire. The other was a chimney fire. Sweep out your creosote. It's a pain in the butt, but get it done. There were no injuries with these calls. 1 call was a total loss of the structure, and the other call was contained to the chimney. One of the 4 calls was a false alarm attended and found to be a cooking incident. The last of the 4 calls was a motor vehicle that ran into the ditch due to ice on the roadway. There were no injuries for this call. The 1 call in our Victoria Beach was for a structure fire. This was attended and the fire was put out. There were no injuries in this event. The structure was in the final stages of being built and there was some smoke, water, and structural damage that will have to be addressed before the project can be completed. We continue, as the fire department continues to train and maintain their skills. They completed a day of vehicle extraction and car fire practice this month. This was a great opportunity for some of their new members to see how equipment and crews deal with these types of emergencies.
All right,
Excuse me, I need to go wash my eyes.
go ahead. Steve is just leaving to go tend to his eyes. I don't have any questions for fire. I did want to add to the police though, that 2024 is the 100th anniversary of policing in Victoria Beach. The first police officer was hired by bylaw in 2024. So there's been a variety of different policing options in the community over that 100 years. RCMP were the primary delegates for the primary force for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And there's numerous local individuals who were constables in the summer. And yeah, so I've left that information. I got that information back to our police chief. I'm not sure what plans he has for the 100th anniversary event or acknowledgement, but at least he's got some of the background.
Thank you, Mayor McMorris, for bringing that up. The police board has formed a mini committee to begin to plan for some sort of celebration of the 100th anniversary, and more details will follow as things unfold.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I'll move on to special events. I have no report. It's very quiet this time of year, other than the police, 100 years of policing. So Ian, I'll move on to the golf course. Do you have anything you want to bring up? Ian, do you have anything on the golf course?
You're muted.
You're muted, sorry.
No, nothing new to add. We're in the process of hiring a superintendent, and I think we're going to engage with a service to help us find someone to take on that role. Steve and I will be looking after the golf course this summer. I'm sure we'll do a great job.
Okay, thank you very much. Graham, I'll move on to municipal buildings.
Okay, thank you. On municipal buildings, there are just two items to report. First, on the bakery, there is an outstanding issue concerning a permit expiry and inspection pertaining to last year's electrical upgrades. It's being addressed by Lori and Adam of DMD, who are our electrical contractors on the bakery. And Lon is part of this process, so we expect that to be resolved long before the bakery reopens this summer. Item number 2 was the parking lot. We have budget pricing for the second egress and planned parking lot expansion, those two items. Lon has been asked to obtain separate prices on these two components to inform council's budget discussions and the eventual invitation to bidders. We're still collecting information on the EV chargers, so that forms a third component of the parking lot issue. It's possible that council will choose to address each of these three items separately, with the second egress to take priority. And that's my municipal buildings report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, council? All right, thank you, Graham. Communications, Steve? No,
Nothing to communicate?
nothing to communicate.
Doctor, did you skip over the doctor?
Did I skip over the doctors? I didn't, I think I skipped over the doctor. My apologies, Steve.
It's okay. My mailbox is supposed to get fixed today, but unfortunately we weren't able to do that. That being said, my understanding is that they have been able to find a couple more doctors, so I'll be able to have a floor report. I'll deliver it in the next meeting.
Okay. Any word on nurse practitioners?
None that I've seen so far. Again, I'm receiving some, I'm not getting everything. So if you need to contact me, please contact me through my personal email. It's just steve_x@me.com. I will get those for sure.
Okay, thank you. Summer information office is quiet. Building inspector, Graham?
That's mine. With thanks to Curtis Baudouin for the reports that he submits. For the month of December 2023, one foundation, one development, value of permits $62,000, permit fees collected $1,172. He's also provided a very interesting 2023 summary. I won't read all the line items to you, but the total value of permits in 2023 was $8,774,000, and the permit fees collected were $63,112. And I'd like to point out that in addition to processing building permits, Curtis is active on an ongoing basis, working with residents, advising them what they can do and what they can't do. So he contributes a lot more than just what the bottom line of permit fees collected indicates. And that'll serve for my building inspector's report.
All right, thank you. Steve?
I'm just wondering, Graham, you might know this off the top of your head, maybe you don't, Lon, I'm not sure if you know, is that a big jump, decrease, or are we sort of breaking even from where we were last year with the building inspector permits?
It's ahead of last year, but it's not as high as the peak of 2 years ago. So it's slightly higher than middle of the road.
So I guess we're starting to see the downfall from during COVID, because I've noticed that there's a lot fewer people down here now than there was during the peak of COVID. So we might want to consider that for budgets as we sort of move forward.
Okay.
We don't see any slack in permits. We're anticipating, as a matter of fact, that 2024 will show something of a resurgence, perhaps as much as 10% more than 2023. But that's just speculation at this point, of course.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Thanks, Steve. Moving on to accessibility. There's some accessibility issues that we're doing some research on. One is the handicap accessible parking spot in front of the building at 2035 Portage Avenue. There is a process to follow with Winnipeg Parking Authority that we are working on. We are looking at increasing accessibility at the RM office, but we do not own the building, so improvements of this sort require landlord approval and budgeting in 2024. We're looking at a grant opportunity for improvements to the website and possible other communication needs that will help us to meet the communications standard by 2025. And the RMVB accessibility plan was approved as updated at our January 9th, 2024 council meeting. Any questions on accessibility? Hearing none, thank you. I will move on to trails, Steve.
So finally, the cross-country ski roomers were able to get out and improve the trails a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, the weather has turned, and so it might be an exceptionally short season. But what is being hoped for is that we might be able to do a winter map, because right now we have a summer map, and we just sort of have like a drawing of the winter map, but it might be something that we could budget for. That was sort of the second or third thing down on my wish list anyway for this budget go around. With the grant applications, they were put in successfully. Major thanks to Lon, as well as JP for both of their efforts. There's also a new grant that's come up for $1,500. It's not that much, but you know, every dollar saved is a dollar that we don't have to charge taxpayers. So from what I'm being told, it's mostly a copy paste, but then there's a couple of additional things that you know need to get put on there. Yep.
So I saw an email from the VB Trails Committee. Are they working on something like a priority list for this 1,500 or?
Yeah, so they just wanted me to mention at the meeting and then ask you guys if you're okay with putting in that application. I was going to ask you separately. I didn't think it needed approval during the meeting, but if we wanted to say yes, then I'm good. Okay.
Yeah, there's no expense on the municipal
Nope, nothing.
side. All right, thank you. Graham, do you have one more thing to tell us? The Friends of the Moonlight?
Yeah, last but not least, the Friends of the Inn Committee. In conversation with our architect, Dean Severson, yesterday, the 22nd, he confirms what pretty well everybody already knows, that the structure is now in place on the new foundation. Materials are on site to begin framing the new kitchen access, and work will be commencing this week. Work can also commence now on some of the interior alterations, including those problem areas originally brought to our attention by the preliminary engineering assessment by Crozier Kilgore, which incidentally was sponsored by our friend Kelly Hearson. I've submitted some time-lapse video clips of the work in process, and a more comprehensive update on the project will be available from Unit 7 for our February 7th council meeting and publishing on our website. But things are going along smoothly, somewhat ahead of schedule. Thank you. Thanks for the weather. So things are looking good for the inn, and that's my report.
Thanks, Graham. I walked down there yesterday, actually, and the flooring, the support flooring is down for the back part. And yeah, the building is back down on the foundation, and it's pretty great. They've made a lot of really good progress.
The walls are up too.
Well, it's a relief to us all that it survived being lifted up, moved sideways, put back down. It held together wonderfully. There was no problems, no issues. So far, so good.
Well, and Lon did a tour around this afternoon and says the walls are up at the back.
Good, thank you.
So, yeah. All right. The only thing is I couldn't open those video files. They don't work on my ancient computer. But Anyways, that's okay.
Well, the people are
Alright.
moving so, their time-lapse photography, the people are moving so fast, it's almost a blur. I'll see if I can find a more coherent way to share them with any of the councillors who had trouble with those attachments.
It's okay. You don't have to worry about me. I'm here. I can go and have a look anytime. So,
Okay,
that's-
all righty.
thank you. All right.
Lon's
Go ahead.
got copies of all of it. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm
All
done.
right. Any other comments, gentlemen? Sorry to keep cutting you off. All right. Hearing nothing further, be it resolved to adopt the monthly reports as presented. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Second. Oh, I'll give that one to Graham. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to accounts and finances. Be it resolved, the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable, 64 items in the amount of $359,461.03. And check 11914 to 11919 in the amount of $1,194.11. Would that be Visa?
No, those are checks to councillors and one to Hydro.
Okay.
We were able to write some checks before our server died on us.
Okay. All right, may I have a mover? Thank you, Steve. Second, Ian. Thank you. Ian, any comments on the accounts payable?
Well, you mentioned the amount and the number of checks. There's just a few items I'll highlight. The engineering site inspection, that was $2,800, not a big amount. Manitoba Hydro was $6,200. And then the remittance for employee benefits was about $16,000. But really the big one was the Lord Selkirk School Division. That was $241,000. Safe Haven Builders for the Alexander Road allowance, that was $23,000. And the landfill for the RM of Alexander was about $5,000. And then the Moonlight Inn was $25,000 towards the architects. So but it was really the school division that was the big component of that.
Right.
If I could add a word to Ian's remarks, thank you, Ian. The 25,000 on the Moonlight Inn is of course been offset through our anonymous donors. So that is a self-clearing item. No cost to the artist.
Actual outlay of cash.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the accounts? All right, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to business arising from the previous meeting. On the table is a discussion about the application for the South Connaught erosion protection. So we heard two delegations tonight, somewhat referred to the South Connaught erosion protection proposal. This application is from proponents from 411 to 431 Sunset. It was brought publicly to council on January 9th. The proponents have hired EngTech to draw up their plans and do surveys on this stretch of beach on Connaught South from King Edward Point to 3 properties north, the 4th Avenue stairs. Initial required documentation has been provided. Similar to the King Edward and Alex project, this project is funded by the affected property owners. At this time, the project has not yet been approved. We do not have a legal agreement or an agreement in regard to future maintenance in place. Understand that the proposed access point will be immediately south of the 5th Avenue stairs, as was used for the construction and protection of the 4th Avenue stairs in 2017. Yeah. Anybody else wish to comment on what we know so far? All right. Okay. I will move on then to Safi Road safety. And at the request of the RM of Alexander Albert Beach Property Association, south of Safi Road, I met with two members of the Alexander Albert Beach property owners and one member of the VB property owners and our police chief, Paul, to discuss concerns regarding the amount of and the speed of traffic on Safi Road between May and October. So to recap for the public, an email I sent to council on this meeting, there is data taken from a speed sign, a speed radar sign that you see on the south side of Safi Road in the summer, well, for 19 weeks from May to October. And that data, the association on the south side pays to have that sign monitored. So that data comes back to them. And in that 19-week period from May to October in 2023, there were 77,324 vehicles recorded heading just one way, heading east from Highway 59 down Safi Road. This traffic sign doesn't catch vehicles going from Pitt Road to 59. It's only eastbound traffic. So they averaged that out to 4,069 vehicles per week in those 19 weeks. And Saturday mornings are by far the busiest. So there are legitimate concerns regarding pedestrian and cyclist safety for residents and visitors on Safi Road. And there is only more development happening on the north and south side of Safi that will continue to have an impact on the traffic. Some of the suggestions that were discussed: more enforcement, handing out more real tickets instead of warnings. And Chief Paul confirmed that these are Highway Traffic Act tickets. They are not municipal tickets. So if you wish to fight them, you have to go to provincial court. They asked for another speed radar sign, one more on the north side of Safi Road, just west of Pitt Road. They thought that might be helpful. Caution signage, something saying watch for children, joggers, pedestrians, and cyclists. And we talked about speed bumps. I did some research and found some temporary ones, and you might have seen them at Superstore or Walmart or somewhere in the summer. They have them when they put up their market garden areas, and they are removable. I talked to Public Works about it. The committee, the people that I met with thought it was a good idea. Public Works did a bit more research and determined that drilling numerous holes that are required to go through each of these temporary ones may cause more damage to the road ultimately. So they suggested perhaps looking at permanent ones. My concerns with permanent ones are snow plows and that kind of thing. So I contacted a friend who does road construction in the city. They tell me that the city generally does the wider ones so that they're longer and wider, and so that they're a little easier on the vehicle and they're easier on snowplows, but they do still slow you down. He said that they're about $3,000 to $5,000 estimate for one speed bump. Now that's just an estimate, and that's a Winnipeg price.
Like, the other thing too is that he would be dealing with asphalt rather than gravel.
Safi Road is asphalt.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Take it back.
Okay. So anyways, they also asked for an improved trail system. This is actually a Public Works suggestion, and JP had brought it up as well, JP Bernay from the AB to VB or VB Trails Group. Improve the trail system to get walkers off of Safi and onto the trails to access the AB to VB trail. That would be a bit of work to cut one trail and improve a couple others to get them off of Safi for a longer stretch. More lighting at some intersections. This was from the south side of Alexander, from Swan Sonora or Christopher. They feel it's very dark and there's no lighting down that way. And last but definitely not least, we need to have a discussion with the Honor of Alexander, because this is our road, but we share it and we share maintenance of it, and they're very good about maintaining it for us. So we need to have a discussion with them and see what their thoughts are on this. So, any comments? Go ahead, Ian.
I think these are all very good suggestions. I would suggest that we maybe pick two of them to start with. I like the idea of the sign that tells people what speed they're going at from Pitt Road going towards 59. I also think that, or I remember back a few years ago, people used to go on the causeway in the summertime and didn't realize it was 70 kilometers and they would do 100, and and then the police were tucked away in the corner and gave out tickets or at least warnings. And I think they've resolved that issue. And I think if they make a concerted effort to hand out more tickets on Safi Road during the summer, I think people will get the message that it's 30 kilometers. And I think if you start with those two things, just see how the results go this summer, and then think about adding, more of these items. But the speed bumps, I agree with you that if you're going to put a speed bump in, put something that you can remove in the wintertime, because it would cause a problem with the snowplow.
Okay, thank you. Steve, do you have a comment?
I was going to say that with that amount of traffic during the summer, like we really should put in a crosswalk there. It's been asked for by a couple of residents in the past.
And how is that going to slow people down?
Well, so it's a safety thing, but it also stops them, because if you have it where it's flashing, which can be solar panel, you don't need to run into a box or anything. If you have a crosswalk there, then people can walk from Safi's over to the store on the other side safely. And you could also cross without having to worry about a car going down. When those are flashing, then traffic is required to stop.
One of the comments that came up a couple times in the meeting was kids and parents all over the road in the summer, on their bikes, on foot. So there's also an education component as well. We did talk about a crosswalk. It didn't get thumbs up. They felt that it wouldn't work as well. But that's something that I can definitely bring back and have another discussion about. Because it's easy enough to put paint on the road, but signage is another story.
You can get flashing just on the side of the road. You don't have
Yeah.
to spend the money to go over top. You can just get them on the side, and there'll be a bright light that'll flash when you press the button.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay. All right, well, I can check that out too. Okay, anything else, gentlemen? Erwin?
I just want to thank Mayor McMorris for attending to this meeting. The issue of speed on Safi Road has been an ongoing problem. Unfortunately, I had a commitment I couldn't attend, but it's good to see that some attention is going to be given to this potential safety issue. I wish to thank Mayor McMorris for attending, and let's hope something good comes out of it.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Graham?
Briefly, I'd like to thank our mayor also for a very thorough report on the Albert Beach situation, and I hope all councillors will continue to study it. There's a lot of detail in there, and I'll go on record as being in support of the speed bumps and a speed sign to address that traffic headed back west. As far as the crosswalk, let's look at the alternatives to a full-blown overhead. We could maybe come up with something, as Lon has suggested, on either side with some flashing lights. I think that would be very interesting, and the speed bumps would, of course, help define the crosswalk area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I had one more thought. You were mentioning that the tickets that would get passed out, they're the sort of city tickets. Is that because it's a provincial road?
It's a municipal road, but it's a Highway Traffic Act ticket. So that's a
The reason I'm asking is, could we put a request in to have the shoulder widened on that road?
That would be up to us and the Arm of Alexander, but there's drainage on both sides of that road that is critical.
And very narrow to the edge of the road. I don't think there's enough room to widen the shoulders there without.
When you allow for the ditches, which are a fundamental requirement, then you're right onto people's private property. So I don't think widening the road would be viable.
But what would be the measurement of the width of the road? I mean, what is the allowance that we have?
I think
I don't
it's
have
99 feet.
No, I think Safi is 66 feet.
66, yeah.
Yeah.
pretty tight.
You've got the road, the apron, and the ditches have to remain intact, and then you're right up to people's property lines with a 66-foot road allowance.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
did
thought.
mention, Okay, no, it's a good thought. I did mention it to Public Works because it did come up. And Public Works said the same thing. If it's the ditches that need to remain open, they get plugged enough. And it would be a huge undertaking to put on either side. It would require culverts all the way down and coverage, and yeah, it would be.
We'd be looking at several $1 million.
I don't know about that, but it would be expensive.
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's the Cadillac price, I think.
Yeah. But it did,
I think-
it was a thought.
Just to mention, at the police board meeting, the question came up, and I think you're going to see our police being a little more active and giving out more tickets. And that will have a positive effect on slowing people down.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, any further discussion? All right, thank you. I will move on to new business. The Shoreline Advisory Committee proposed terms of reference. Have a resolution on the floor. Be it resolved to approve the Shoreline Advisory Committee terms of reference. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Second, Graham, thank you. I think we need some discussion on this, gentlemen. Right now we have 5 voting members plus 2 non-voting. Steve, do you have a comment to make?
So, I mean, Mr. Juice's point, I think, is well founded because, you know, it's 3 and 5. Like, he does make a point that there are 3 lakeshore property owners, so that gives him 60% of the vote. And then it didn't check it in the, in the actual document. And that's, I don't know how you get over that. Because, you know, you do need that odd number for some sort of like some final decision. But it's, yeah.
What if you didn't be so specific in where the people were from? What if you just said 7 members voting or 5 would, and then just say, have a disclaimer that council or whoever formulates this committee will make every attempt to have a well-balanced from different areas of the RM. They don't all have to be, I don't have to any Lakeshore really, they can just be anybody.
Yeah, I like that suggestion, and I agree with Steve, with Mr. Juice's presentation. There's too many lakefront property owners on this to create a reasonable balance of all residents. So let's delete the reference to whether they're lakefront or not. It makes it much easier for us to come up with a good quality representative committee.
I'm not sure that you have to do that. I think if you want to just switch, have 3 non-lakefront and 2 lakefront. I mean, just keep it simple. But I think you need a balance between people that are on the lake and versus people that aren't.
Yeah.
I don't think you should just eliminate that. And I like the idea that it represents the whole RM and not just the restricted area. So
Definitely.
I think if we want to change it, I think all you have to do is change one of those sort of the north or one of those areas. Just change it to a non-lakefront owner, and that would solve your problem. If that's what you want to do.
I could agree with that. Sure.
Do you still want to keep 5 voting members then? Or do you want
Yeah,
to
I
add
think
some?
the idea of leaving at 5, you've got a committee that can actually function. I think if you add more people, it just becomes ineffective.
But 5 is good. And the 2 non-voting members, that's good.
Okay, Steve has a comment.
Yeah, I would just possibly make a suggestion, and it's one that I put forward in the last meeting, is maybe you take off a lakeshore property owner from that, and you make the engineer one of the voting members. That way you have 5. You have an expert who's voting, and you have 2 that are representing both interests, if you want to call it that.
I'm not sure that the engineer's a property owner. We're going to hear his opinion. Just because he doesn't vote, we're certainly going to find out what he has to say when a situation is brought to us. I don't think you need to give him a vote.
I
I think
agree.
it defeats
Should remain non-voting.
Typically, consultants do not have a vote at the board level. They're there to
That's right.
provide advice, recommendations to the board for consideration. And typically, they will not have an actual vote. Just
Well,
to,
it could
can I
involve
comment
a
one more on
conflict of
the
interest.
issue of representation by geography? I think it's important that we designate that we have representatives from Lakeshore and Backlot. If you just eliminated the need to have people from the Backlot or from the Lakeshore, you could end up with a board entirely made up of all Lakeshore or entirely of all Backlot. So I think it's important that that the board be balanced and have representation from the various geographical areas of our.
I agree.
I agree with that. I think it's going to be difficult to have representation from every area with only a 5-member committee. But I also understand why a 5 plus 2 non-voting is much more workable for any committee, right?
Yes.
So that doesn't preclude the committee calling for opinions from the general public. If there's an issue, delegations could appear before the committee to express their concerns. That's still an option for the committee.
That should be encouraged.
Okay.
I think we can count on that in Victoria Beach.
Thank you. Steve.
This is my final point, is if we were to do, if we were to have an engineer as, like, give them voting rights and have two backlot, two lakefront, then it's, irrelevant as to whether or what other committees do generally. You have an expert who could rely on their knowledge base and be a neutral party. And if they're not from Victoria Beach, then they really would be an absolute neutral party. But I won't push that anymore. I just think that might be a good solution. And then that also stops anybody from saying, well, go to the experts, go to the experts, go to the experts. You have an expert who's voting based on their expertise, and then you have equal representation from the front of the back. But again, it really is relevant as to how other committees do things. What is important is that we don't create a situation whereby, oh, well, it's because of this or it's because of that. You want something that's as neutral as possible when you have such a hot potato.
But I think we can manage that by being very careful about the people who we approach to be on the committee. And we know there are people in our community who are very knowledgeable on both sides, right? On Lakeshore and non-Lakeshore. So I think that's important. And I think we can't forget that. I think Erwin or Ian mentioned it, we have 11 different reaches in our community and they all have different needs. So we need people who are able to see all the way around the beach. Be lakefront or non-lakefront. So can we move on? Is there any other? So what I heard there was basically, and if I'm wrong, tell me, 2 lakeshore and 3 non-lakeshore.
Right.
Okay. Plus the current member of council and a geotech engineer, if possible. Anything else as you're looking down the document that you have concerns or comments about?
No, I thought it was well put together.
The one remark.
Eric Morris, will we be soliciting some public response to this?
We have had some tonight, but go ahead.
This is approved by resolution. I mean, if something should happen where all of council wants to change it or alter it, or some good advice comes from, I know you're supposed to wait a year, but no one's going to hold you that. If all of council wants to change it and the community wants to change somehow, it wouldn't take but one meeting to alter or edit the.
Yeah.
Would it be appropriate for us to table the resolution and give the general public an opportunity to appear as delegations if they wish to express their concerns or offer opinions?
You can do whatever you want.
We would put it on our website then, is that? what
It
you-
is on our
Oh, it is on the website. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Okay,
Shoreline page. So.
okay. So it is on the shoreline page if residents wish to have a look. But
Yeah.
sure, I'm fine with tabling this until the next council meeting, for instance, or the one after that. But don't forget, there is also, we have heard from residents who want to get this committee up and running sooner rather than later. So,
So I think waiting one more meeting is a good idea.
okay. I'm hearing consensus on that, gentlemen.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, the Lac Du Bonte Personal Care Home resolution. And I do apologize for the length of this resolution. It did not come from me. You may recall I brought this up, I think, in December or so. And it was brought forward by the Eastern Region Municipal Committee that I sit on in regard to the personal care home in Lac Du Bonte that was promised by the previous provincial governments. They were shovel ready more than once, and this new government came back and said, no, we're going to put everything over so many $1 million on hold, on pause. So the very long resolution sent to council that Lac Du Bonte would like us to approve and forward. Our resolution is this. So would you like me to read it?
I don't think it's necessary to read the entire resolution. It speaks for itself. The bottom line is that we request Premier and Health to reconsider and lift the pause. I think we're all in favor of this and can agree right now.
Right. I will read, for instance, the last, therefore be it resolved that the Eastman Region communities, municipalities, and local government districts respectfully request that the Premier and Health Minister reconsider and lift the pause on the Lac Du Bonte personal care home so that construction can commence and move forward as planned.
Right.
All right, so that's the last be it resolved. And this was started in 2012, this project. And so it would just be a huge boon to residents in the community, to seniors who are sitting in care home beds in hospitals. It would be, anyway. All right. So having read the final paragraph of the resolution, may I call the question? All those in favor of supporting this resolution?
Aye.
Carried. Oh, I didn't ask who moved it or seconded. I blew it.
But you voted.
But we voted, so let's go back, gentlemen. My
That's
apologies. That's what
Throw
laws
it
do.
reverse. I move that we accept this resolution.
Sorry, thank you. Erwin, second. Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm glad you
Didn't want to
reminded me.
make that
Thank
one.
you very much. All right, now we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Erwin? Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lon. Appreciate that. All right, moving on to the CIBC borrowing. Whereas the CIBC requires an updated borrowing resolution to meet its security requirements, therefore be it resolved to authorize the ongoing operating line of credit of $500,000 and the 4 corporate credit cards with a total credit limit of $20,000 each for the year 2024. May I have a mover? Steve, thank you. Graham, second. Thank you. This is general housekeeping, is something we do every year, just before all the taxes start to roll in, to ensure that if we need it, the line of credit is there.
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Ian, you had a discussion about the zoning bylaw.
Yeah, I just was thinking about it and I thought, I know we want to sort of continue or at least do the readings next summer when most of the residents are in the area. But I thought in the meantime, there's a whole drafting process and an editing process that we could continue to do now. And I asked Lon earlier, we haven't received the first draft. So if I forget the name of the company, but if they could give us the first draft, we could read it. And if they could give it to us black lines so that we see what they're changing, that would at least be the first step. And if in the next few months we go through it and we realize, we like what they're saying here, this might be a challenge. I mean, I know Lon did a lot of work on finding out what the issues were before we even hired them. They did an open house. They came up with a long list, which they presented to us in the fall, of things that need to be addressed. So if they could just take that information and edit the document so that we actually have a draft so that we can see where they make the changes, we can add our comments, it can go back to them, and we can do this over the next few months so that we have something that we could show the public maybe in June, and we can go through the readings, July, August, get this thing done. I just thought if we just sort of leave it open-ended and wait till next summer, we'll probably be having the conversation next Christmas about closing this thing. So
Landmark is supposed to be providing council with a draft fairly soon. That's my understanding. Would you comment on that, Lon?
I don't remember getting a draft. I know that they had talked to you already about the changes that they were proposing, the new zones and the requirements in each zone. My understanding was that they were going to have an open house, propose to the community what they were going to, with these new zones, and then come back, make some final changes, and then put a draft. But you could be right. I just don't remember them saying we'd get a draft, but I'll ask them definitely tomorrow.
Yeah, my understanding was that they were going to be coming back to council with a sort of a final draft proposal.
Well, I understood that as well, Erwin, but then we had the conversation with them about, do we want to do this thing through the winter? And so we kind of put it on pause.
Correct.
So all I'm suggesting is that we take it off pause, and the part that we do internally, just the drafting process, let's continue moving down the path, because we might go through 6 or 7 drafts of this thing, and next thing you know, it'll be June, and then we'll be ready to at least find out what people think. They can do an open house if they want. They can highlight what the changes are, and they can get the feedback, and then we can just move this thing along.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And let's give it a bit of a jump start and get her back on track.
Yep.
I think we got a little wait aid with other matters, but good suggestion. Thank you, Ian.
It's been a busy 2023 for sure.
Yeah, well, it hit a speed bump. It hit something called a revetment.
Well, it's important.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. All right. Correspondence, information, and announcements. We're still searching for the golf course superintendent and clubhouse manager positions. Have we been in touch with a search group?
Yeah, Summit Search Group has been hired, and they're looking. They have specialty in this area.
Who knew there was a specialty in golf course?
They do.
Good for them. So Lon, what's the process? Are they going to put a profile together, put some postings out, come up with some resumes, and send them to us, and then we can circulate them and take a look?
Yeah, that's my understanding. They have a database of applicants, I guess, just ongoing that they communicate to. But I contacted him today, and I haven't heard back from him yet, so just to see where we are.
No, I'm sure they'll do a good job. If they specialize in it, they'll know where to go.
Yeah, who to approach. Okay, anything else? Steve, go ahead.
So I sent this out again, emails, because I tried to send it out again just now, but what I was, just to quickly bring up what we had talked about in the last meeting with making garbage mandatory. I sent out a proposed fee structure. If it's okay, I just wanted to read it out real quick. It's not going to take too long. Basically, what I was proposing was that we would have, oh shoot. Oh, no, I wrote that. So the first fine would be $25. The second would be $75. The third, which I was proposing, would be the purchase of a bin and all associated costs. And the fourth would be $1,000. I've sort of been in discussions with all of you guys, and I was, after speaking to you, I thought that maybe we sort of take not a long-term approach, but we come at it a little bit more gradually, but also forcibly. So the first year, which would be 2024, we would deliver warnings. And then in 2025, the actual fines would start to say that, okay, everybody's had more than enough time to, understand this.
And then we've also given you that buffer year, but this is happening. So if we pass it now, then we'll still have that, well, you know, we gave you more than a year to prepare.
So you could say in the resolution effective May
Yeah.
1st, 2025, you
Yes.
must.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's something to work on with Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
That resolution could perhaps come to the next council meeting or as soon as possible. I agree with Steve. We need to draw a line in the sand. Sooner the better.
I just wanted to add one comment that was made earlier about the municipality not going through proper procurement for a bidding on the project that we did. I just wanted to make for the record that we did follow our procurement policy. 5 bidders were invited to attend to fortify the Alexander Stairs. We got 3 quotes for sure. I think we got a 4th, but I know we got 3 for sure. And the vendor or the bidder that we did select was the low bidder out of the 3. I just wanted to make that clear because it made it sound like we didn't do that.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. It's noted.
Thank you. All right, anything, oh, sorry, one more thing. The AMM Spring Convention is in Brandon this spring. They changed the dates. It is, they moved it ahead a little bit. It is now April 9th, 10th, and 11th. I haven't seen an agenda and I haven't seen a cost. But I'm considering attending and just want the rest of council to be aware that it is coming up. If you'd like to attend and ready. And that's all I have.
Okay.
All right, so be it resolved, the January 23rd, 2024 regular council meeting now be adjourned. The next meeting will be on Tuesday, February 6th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in Winnipeg at 2035 Portage Avenue. May I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you. Steve, second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, and thank you to the staff here for setup and cleanup.